So, today we're going to talk about, the subject for today is, nothing needs to happen. I'm going to say it again. Nothing needs to happen. So, in this communication that we have here, we're pointing to a way of being that is completely alien to the separated self. The separated self that believes it is a body, and it's very interesting, the Course in Miracles lesson for today is I'm not a body, I'm free, which is interesting. But the belief in the body is basically the belief in duality. The belief that there's something other than what is already here. Something other than the absolute, right? So everything is relative. So if there's a here, there's a there. If there's nothing happening, something has to be happening. Or if something is happening, then we need to stop it from happening. If I am thin, I need to get fat. If I'm happy, I need to get sad. If I'm sad, I need to get happy. If I'm depressed, I need to get this. A duality, right? So it's duality and it's all relative. Everything is relative, right? In the separated self. In the separated self, that's how we live. And this is an interesting way to live. And most of the time we live this way without even knowing it, because it is something that is taught to us, it's fed to us, it is, there's a lot of other beings out there thinking they're another separate being, and they're all doing the same thing in their own little loop. I always say that there's a whole bunch of, for every person that's on the earth, there's another reality banging up against that person. Right? So this one's reality is banging up against this one's reality, and this one, and this one, and this one, right? So within that reality, this little universe that the separated self lives in, there is a constant feeling, constant nudging that something needs to happen. And that is a very interesting thing, because many people come to something like this, like us talking here, come to something like this because they feel like something has to happen. For example, I need to get peaceful. I need to get more spiritual. I need to ground myself. These are all things that need to happen. Something needs to happen, because where now is not right. It's not right. And so the separated self needs to say, that needs to happen, and that needs to happen. So do you need to get somewhere? Do you need to try to make yourself do something? From this communication, and it's interesting because we're talking about A Course in Miracles just now, the Course in Miracles would say, I need do nothing. Now, the operative word there, well, in my point of view, from my point of view, the operative word is the I for our conversation. Because it's only the connection to the I, the separated self, the character that you've created, that is somehow telling you you have to do something, right? So, let me just say this. You're not going to learn, you're not going to learn anything here. I'm not teaching you anything. I'm just pointing a direction, right? Because the direction is that you could say, I need do nothing. And you could say nothing needs to happen. And then you go, and then you'll say to yourself, okay, I'm not going to do anything. Okay, I'm not doing anything. I'm not going to do anything. But that's still the I choosing to not do something. Do you understand? That I is the separation, that I is the problem, that character is the, problem. It's not a problem. There's no problems. Everything is exactly the way it needs to be. There's nothing wrong here. But the I will try to make the I stop. Okay, now I get it. So what we need to do is I need to make myself stop. And so I'm not going to do anything. That's still the small loop of the universe that the self lives in. What we're pointing to is the absolute, which is much bigger, and it is not understandable to the eye. Right? It's not understandable to the eye. But this is why I say it all the time. I'm facilitating a conversation. There are pointers in this direction. So, I'm not here to tell you, say, stop doing anything, because that would be ridiculous, because that would just be another thing to do. You're going to do something to not do something. Does that make sense? So nothing needs to happen. But things do happen. Things actually happen. Events happen. Relationships happen. Sadness happens. Joy happens. Love happens. Right? Just thought of that great movie, Love Actually. But love happens. There is only love. But that's a whole other conversation. So nothing needs to happen. Of course nothing needs to happen. Because you're not even a body. You're not a body. But if you think you are a body, and if you think you are a separated self, that's fine. In that realm, it will always keep you on. I use this all the time, and I will continue to use it till I'm done doing whatever I do. That Lily Tomlin line that says, doesn't matter if you win the rat race, because you're still a rat. Because as long as you identify as the rat, aha, there is the rub. I'm not going to say problem. And there's the rub. Okay? So, put in the chat what you think or what's coming up for you, and we'll talk. Let's see. Okay. Laura says, I needed to move? Question mark? I don't know what you... And anyone can say anything. There's nothing here, nothing stupid or nothing bad or whatever. You can say whatever you want to. Doesn't matter. And we're just going to have a discussion. Let's see. Laura says I needed to move. Are you asking me, did you need to move? I don't know. Did you? Or did moving happen? Today proceeds on through today. Yes, Tina? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I moved to a new apartment a few weeks ago. Yeah. What's your point, Laura? I'm a little lost. That's okay. Elaine says, if I'm living in human body, which is duality, how can I think in a non-dual? You can't do it. You can't. Because it'll be you trying to think in a non-dual way. It doesn't work that way. The separated self always wants to know how. Because that's the only way it processes. It processes that way. Right? You can't do it. Because there's no you there anyway. It's just going to be you trying to be non-dual now. Now I'm going to be non-dual. Laura, what do you mean about the moving? So what's the long of knowing this? What do you mean, Elaine? I don't think that's the word you wanted to use, but what's the point of knowing this? There's no point. There's nothing to learn. There's no point. What do you mean I need do nothing when I had to move? You didn't have to move. Well, you could have convinced yourself you had to move, or I don't know. There's no right or wrong. First of all, I'm not saying it's wrong if you do something, everyone. And I'm saying it's right if you don't do anything. That would be duality again. So I don't mean anything here, Laura. What this is pointing to is that the separated self runs what it thinks is a life. What we're pointing to here and what we're talking about here, the seeker does not want to know this. And it doesn't resonate with a lot. I mean, and if it resonates, it resonates. If it doesn't, it doesn't. That's totally fine. But the seeker does not want to know this. doesn't want to know this, because ultimately it's the death of the seeker. It's the death of the separateness. It's the death of the individual. It doesn't want to know this. And nothing is wrong or right about that. Some people hate this message. Like, they hate it. And some people are like, listen, I've kind of come out of the spiritual closet in the last couple of months, being very clear that this is the process that is happening, and I have to share what's going on here. It's not that I disbelieve, whatever. I never believed in the Course in Miracles or whatever. It's just I have to share this is what it's going through. On my list, I lost a whole bunch of people because they're like, oh, I don't want to hear that. Other people are like, oh my God, that makes sense. I get it. They're having a resonance with it. But if it doesn't, it doesn't. If it does, it does. Right? Elaine says, it does make one think, so that can only be good. Sure. It's a whole dismantling of, I don't want to use the word paradigm because it's used so much, but it's a whole dismantling of everything that the self has been taught on some level. Tiffany says, I had a whole conversation about this with my friend on Saturday, and the loss of the story concept. We had the best night. I love that. Yeah, the story concept is big, right? Because we identify, the self identifies with the story of the self. Without your story, who are you? In my advanced group, we had a whole great night about talking about that. If you weren't your story, then what would you be? If you weren't your story, what would you be? And we've touched on that here, for sure. And for a second, you can some people can get it, and this either resonates or it doesn't resonate, as I said. Elaine says, I think you're answering that what would you be without your story? You'd be a body. Okay. Think about this for just a moment, everyone. Just think about how much of your energy, your focus, your intentions are about having something happen. I have to clean the house. I have to pick up the kids. I have to lose 10 pounds. I have to read the Bhagavad Gita. I have to do my nails. I have to do this. It's all about making something happen. Not all, but a lot of your thinking and your energy is all about making something happen. But nothing needs to happen. Nothing needs to happen. It doesn't. Now, cleaning the house, taking the kids to school, doing your nails may happen. That could happen. I'm doing my nails. That's what's happening right now. Or whatever it is. It doesn't mean that never happens. It's the self's impetus to try to control and make everything happen. That's a pointer to it. Sue says, Elaine, what would you be without your body? Okay. You'd be dead. Well, yeah. Well, there is no death. So, and there's no life. There's just what's happening. There's no death and there's no life. There's just what's happening. That's it. That's it. Some people hear this and think, oh, this is the most negative, nihilistic, hopeless. And it is hopeless, that's for sure. It is hopeless, right? There is no north and no death in non-duality. Yeah, there's well, there's yeah, yes, and birth. I know. I figured that's what you said. Everything is what it is. I didn't even realize this was what was happening to me, my friends. As the last few years, everything has been falling into place for this character. It's all been falling into place, little by little by little. And then all of a sudden, in the last few months, it's like exploded. And I had no idea really what it was. I kind of had an idea, but I was like, something's going on. And then I was like, oh, wait a second. Let me start to look at this, what's happening, being honest with myself, looking at what's going on. And then I was like, oh, there's that non-duality thing. Is that what it is? I even hate saying non-duality because that's not even a thing either, right? But I guess that's what it's called. The closest thing in words. It's very hard to describe this, and it's very hard to articulate it because it's so far beyond words, right? So, and then I was like, I guess it's non-duality. So what's just happening called? Drinking is happening. Talking to a screen is happening. Hearing a beeping outside my door is happening. Window is happening. It's just what happens. Ina says control. Control has a lot to do with it. Anything else anyone wants to say? We don't have to say anything. It's fine with me. Nancy, how do we diminish the concept of duality? How do we diminish the concept? Well, we're going to be talking all about duality on Wednesday. Let me tell you, I'm going to talk all about duality. You don't need to diminish the concept of duality because then that would be you trying to diminish the concept of duality. Some people, this can be really frustrating. Some people, how do we do anything is like saying something needs to happen. Nancy, do you understand that? When we say, I'm not getting on you, I'm just pointing this out. How do we diminish the concept of duality is just like the topic for today, which is nothing needs to happen. Elaine says, but wouldn't that make one goalless? Well, for sure. The self is a is a goal machine. The self is a goal machine. But I do have to say this. Goals might happen. It might happen, but it's going to be a completely different thing. Completely different thing than the self having a goal. Because the goal is, I have to get spiritual. I have to stop suffering. I have to become this. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to be anything. Because nothing needs to happen. But you could be like, why? Why do I want to learn the guitar? Oh, I guess that's what's happening. I'm going to learn the guitar. Okay, that'll be great. How does one get comfortable with being alone and not doing anything? Well, if Chandra says, how does one get comfortable with being alone and not doing anything? One will never be comfortable that way. If you're talking about the separate self, the separate self is always going to try to get you to do something. Lane's like, okay, got it. Universal flow, real goals for you, but there is no you. There's no learning here. There's just pointing towards. Getting Chandra, just so you know, I'll say this like I said to, who was it earlier? Nancy. Asking how does one get comfortable with being alone is the same thing as saying nothing needs to happen, because the self needs something to happen. There's nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. There's no one to be.